My name is Sarah Ellington. I'm 29 years old, and I live in Savannah, Georgia, a place where moss drapes over the trees like nature's curtains, and the line between history and mystery feels paper thin. I never thought my life would become part of that mystery. I worked as a pediatric nurse, spending most of my days comforting children and trying to ease the worries of terrified parents. I had a decent apartment, a cat named Clementine, and a quiet circle of friends. On the outside, it looked like I had everything together. But the truth, there was a quiet ache inside me, a kind of spiritual numbness I couldn't explain. I wasn't an atheist or anything like that, but I wasn't close to God either. I had grown up in a Christian home, but as I got older, I slowly drifted. Life got busy. Faith became just a word. Prayer became a memory. I guess I filled that emptiness with normal things. Netflix, social media, going out, decorating for every holiday like it was a sacred tradition. And yes, I loved Halloween. I really did. The costumes, the spooky decor, the candy, the parties. I thought it was harmless, cute even. I never stopped to ask myself what I was really celebrating, or what I was opening myself up to, but something had always whispered, deep down, that life was more than this, that I was more than this. Sometimes I'd stare at the ceiling at night and think, what happens when we die? Is anyone even listening when I pray? Am I just drifting toward some empty end? I never imagined the answer would come the way it did. The emptiness behind the mask. Halloween had always been one of my favorite times of the year. Not for the dark stuff. I wasn't into witchcraft or horror or anything, but because it felt like an escape, a chance to be someone else for one night, to laugh, to forget about real life, to indulge in something playful and fun. I'd decorate my apartment with pumpkins and flickering fake candles. I'd watch cheesy, scary movies, carve jack-o'-lanterns, and dress up every year with my friends. It was tradition. We'd say things like, "It's just for fun," or "It's not that serious." But now, looking back, it was dead serious. That year, I dressed as a forest fairy. Green velvet dress, gold glitter, leaves in my hair. We went to a party downtown, one of those costume events where everyone's trying to outdo each other. The music was loud, the drinks were strong, and people laughed under orange and purple lights as if nothing could touch them. But I remember something strange that night. I kept getting this chill, not just from the October air. This was something spiritual, like the kind of feeling you get when you walk into a room and know something bad happened there. I brushed it off, told myself I was overthinking it. Maybe I was just tired. Later, someone offered me a drink with a name I'd never heard before. Just a Halloween special. They laughed. I took a sip and smiled. But after that, everything started to feel foggy. Not drunk, but distant. Like I was slipping between two realities and couldn't hold on to either. I started to feel uneasy. The costumes that once made me laugh now looked grotesque. People wore masks with bloodstains, skeleton suits, demonic horns. And for the first time, I noticed something terrifying. No one was pretending anymore. They were laughing like monsters, dancing like they were possessed. I don't even know how to explain it, but the joy turned into something hollow, something twisted. I felt like I had stepped into another world, one where light didn't exist. And then came the accident, the day of darkness, October 31st. I left the party earlier than usual. Something in my chest felt heavy, like I was dragging a shadow behind me. I said goodbye to my friends. None of them seemed to notice how pale I had become, and walked out into the cool Georgia night. The streets were still alive with laughter and the echo of haunted house sound effects. Porch lights glowed orange. Children in costumes passed me by, clutching candy buckets, their parents trailing behind. But all I could hear was this low, pulsing hum in my ears. It wasn't coming from outside. It was inside me, like a warning. I started to feel dizzy. My breathing became shallow. The sidewalk seemed to twist beneath my feet. I remember thinking, I just need to get to my car. And then, headlights. A scream. Silence. It happened in an instant. One moment I was walking. The next, I was floating above my body. I didn't even feel the impact. I didn't feel pain. I didn't feel anything. Just a sudden release. I saw my body crumpled in the street, my costume torn and blood on the pavement. People were shouting. Someone called 911. A woman knelt beside me, crying. But I was somewhere else. I hovered above the scene, calm, detached. The panic and noise below felt distant, like a dream I was no longer part of. Then I looked up, and that's when I saw it. A veil, thin, shimmering, almost invisible, but pulsing like a living heartbeat. I felt pulled toward it, not by force, but by some ancient gravity. Something beyond time, beyond explanation. The moment I crossed that veil, the world behind me disappeared, and I stepped into eternity. The moment of death, when time stopped. Time didn't exist anymore. There was no sound, no weight, no breath. Yet I was aware, not with my eyes, not with my body, but with something deeper, the core of who I truly was. At first, I didn't understand what had happened. I kept trying to move, to speak, to call for help, but my voice had no sound. My arms had no strength. Then I saw them, the paramedics. Their mouths moved fast, their hands pressed against my chest, but I couldn't feel a thing. I remember thinking, why aren't they helping me? Why can't they hear me? Then it hit me with terrifying clarity. I was dead. It's strange. The moment you realize you've died isn't filled with horror like in the movies. It's more like a quiet truth that slips into your soul and settles there, a deep stillness that hums through everything. I turned my gaze upward, and it was as though the sky itself unfolded. Layers of light, color, and something I can only call sound made visible. It vibrated, sang, breathed. Every molecule around me shimmered with an intelligence I couldn't comprehend. The fear that had gripped me only seconds before was gone. In its place came peace, pure, absolute peace. Then I heard it, a whisper, so soft it could have been my own thought. You were never alone. The words weren't in English, yet I understood them perfectly. They wrapped around me like warmth on the coldest night. My whole being trembled, not from fear, but from a recognition so deep it made me weep without tears. I looked down one last time. My body lay there, broken, but still surrounded by people trying to save me. A friend knelt beside me, her mascara running, shouting my name. I wanted to tell her, it's okay, I'm not there anymore. And then, as if a great wind passed through me, everything went still, completely still. The street, the sirens, the voices, gone. The world dissolved into light. And that was the first moment I realized, death isn't the end. It's the beginning of truth, out of the body, the silence that screamed. It's hard to describe what it's like to be outside your body, to no longer be bound by weight, by flesh, by time. I wasn't floating like a ghost. I wasn't drifting in space. I was aware, completely, terrifyingly, magnificently aware. And the first thing I noticed was the silence, not the absence of noise, but the kind of silence that has a voice of its own. It didn't speak in words. It pressed into me, like a question I couldn't ignore. Do you see now? I looked around. Everything was transparent. The world I knew felt like a faded layer beneath something far more real. Trees shimmered with a faint glow. The stars above pulsed like heartbeats. I wasn't seeing with eyes anymore. I was seeing with understanding. And yet, I felt this pull, as though someone, was waiting for me. I turned toward the direction of that pull, and what I saw, it still makes me tremble when I remember. A vast space opened before me. I don't know how else to explain it. It wasn't a place, but a presence. A realm that felt alive. A realm of purity, light, and infinite intelligence. But I also saw something else. Shadows. They clung to people. Not physical forms, but spiritual ones. All around the earth, I could feel souls entangled in darkness, unaware, laughing, dancing in ignorance, many of them celebrating what they thought was harmless fun. It was like watching children play with fire while the house burned behind them. And then I heard it again, louder this time, in the silence that screamed, "They don't know what they're playing with, but they will." Those words pierced me, not as judgment, but as truth, heavy, holy truth. I began to weep, not for myself, I was safe, but for them, for us, for all of us who live in shadows while calling them light. And then, the light came, the encounter with the light, and with him. The light didn't just appear, it arrived, not like a sunrise, but like a door being opened to something my soul had always longed for, but never dared to enter. It wasn't just light in the way we know it. It had substance, power, and personality. It knew me, every part of me, every failure, every secret, every cry I had whispered into the dark. And still, it loved me. The closer it came, the more undone I became. I didn't have a mouth, but I wanted to fall on my knees. I didn't have tears, but I wept, because I knew, without a doubt, this was Jesus. Not the painting on a church wall, not the name used in arguments or slogans, not a myth or symbol or religious figure. He was real, he was alive, and he was everything. He didn't speak with his mouth, yet I heard him more clearly than any voice I've ever known. "Sarah," he said, calling me by name. "I have always been with you." I wanted to run to him. I wanted to stay in that place forever. I felt waves of love crashing through me, not the soft, sweet kind. This was a violent, healing love that shattered every lie I had ever believed about myself. I saw my life, not just the events, but the why behind them. Every wound, every sin, every prayer I thought had gone unanswered. He showed me how he had been present, even in my rebellion, even in my confusion. And I saw his pain. Yes, his pain, because he loves us. And yet we choose darkness. He said something next that shook my spirit. They are playing with darkness. They are celebrating what I came to overcome. My soul froze. He was talking about Halloween, but not just the costumes, not just the fun. He was talking about the spirit behind it all. I suddenly saw flashes, souls laughing while wearing demonic faces, children dressing as death, adults casting spells for fun, parties where spirits were invited in, and behind it all, real evil, watching, smiling, feeding, and we were calling it entertainment. "This is not a game," Jesus said. "They are inviting what they do not understand." And then, he looked at me with eyes more full of sorrow than judgment and whispered, "You must go back. They are playing with darkness," the warning from Jesus. There was no anger in his voice, but there was authority, and a sorrow so deep, it felt like the universe itself was mourning with him. Jesus looked into me, through me, and showed me what I had never dared to believe, that evil is not a myth, that spiritual darkness is real, and that many of us invite it without even knowing. He said, "They mock what is sacred. They laugh at death and decorate their homes with fear. They don't understand the doors they are opening. Even my children are celebrating the enemy's feast." I was stunned. I had never thought of Halloween that way. To me, it was just pumpkins and parties, costumes and candy. But now, I saw what he saw. I saw spirits hovering over houses. I saw children unknowingly dressed like demons, surrounded by darkness they couldn't perceive. I saw people casting spells on TikTok for fun. I saw churches ignoring it. I saw millions asleep, their souls lulled by entertainment, while the enemy whispered lies through smiling masks. And he showed me this, a generation walking into fire, laughing, while their spirits were chained in shadows. "They are playing with darkness," he said again, "and they don't even know they're being watched." I couldn't breathe, not from fear, but from the gravity of what I was seeing. Jesus turned to me and said, tell them I am coming back, and many are not ready. They must wake up. They must choose." He showed me what's coming. Not dates, not charts, but a spiritual shaking. I saw lights going out in places that once had truth. I saw false teachers rising. And I saw revival. Yes, revival. But it came through fire, not comfort. "Warn them, Sarah," he said, and his voice shook my soul. "They still have time. The mission. You must go back." When he said the words, "You must go back," I felt something inside me break. Go back? Leave this? Leave him? I didn't want to return, not even a little. Here in his presence, there was no fear, no confusion, no striving. I was fully known, fully loved, and finally home. I begged, not with words, but with my whole being, "Please let me stay. Please don't send me back." But Jesus looked at me, not with coldness, but with a love that carried purpose. He reached toward me, and I felt his touch, not physical, but eternal, fill me with something I still don't fully understand. Divine urgency. "You have seen," he said. "Now you are responsible." That truth pierced me deeper than any blade. He wasn't forcing me to go back. He was entrusting me. He showed me faces, people I didn't know but would one day meet, souls searching in silence, young people drowning in spiritual confusion, parents unknowingly inviting darkness into their homes, even pastors too afraid to speak the truth. And he said, "Your story will break chains, but it must be told." I looked around one last time. The colors, the light, the peace. I remember thinking, this is more real than anything I ever knew on earth. But then, he stepped back, and the light began to fade, and suddenly, I fell. Not physically, spiritually, like being pulled through water, through sound, through time, back toward a body I no longer wanted. And then I woke up, to pain, bright lights, tubes, beeping machines, the hospital. I was back, the return, and the fight to be heard. Waking up in the hospital was like being born into a world I no longer belonged to. Everything felt heavy, dim, slow. The fluorescent lights hurt my eyes. My body screamed in pain. Machines beeped rhythmically, reminding me that I was alive, but only barely. At first, the doctors didn't expect me to make it. I had multiple fractures, head trauma, internal bleeding. They said it was a miracle I even woke up, but they had no idea just how true that was. I tried to tell them. I tried to explain what I saw, what I heard, what Jesus told me. But every time I opened my mouth, they just nodded politely. They thought it was brain trauma, hallucination, a coping mechanism. Even friends I trusted gave me that look, the one people give when they don't want to call you crazy, but they think you might be. They didn't want to hear about spiritual darkness, about warnings, about what Halloween really is. "You almost died, Sarah," they said. "You should be grateful to be alive. Don't overthink it." But how could I stay silent? I had stood before Jesus. I had heard his warning. I had been sent back with a mission. So I started sharing, quietly at first, online, in small groups, in church. Some listened. Many didn't. Some mocked. Some unfollowed. Some woke up. It's a lonely thing, carrying a message the world doesn't want. But I carry it anyway, because every time October approaches, every time I see children dressing as witches and adults laughing at demons, every time I hear people say, "It's just harmless fun," I remember what Jesus said. They are playing with darkness, and they don't even know they're being watched. And I feel that fire in my bones. Because I didn't survive just to keep quiet. I came back for you. My life was never the same, and yours doesn't have to be. People often ask me, "How are you now? Did things go back to normal?" And I always answer with a quiet smile, "No, and thank God they didn't." I'm not the same woman who laughed at Halloween decorations or lived for the next distraction. I don't crave the shallow anymore. I don't chase what glitters and dies. Because I've seen the truth, and truth ruins you for anything less. Now I live with urgency. Not fear, urgency. Because I know how thin the veil really is. I know how many are asleep, blindfolded by entertainment, lulled by culture, walking straight toward eternal separation while thinking they're safe. And I know how deeply Jesus loves them, loves you, even now, even in your confusion, even in your questions. He sent me back not because I'm special, but because you are, because someone needed to tell you. You're being pursued, you're seen, you're wanted, and there's still time to turn around. This message is not just about Halloween. It's about truth. It's about the choice between light and darkness. It's about not giving your soul to the enemy through ignorance, fear, or pride. Jesus didn't show me a religion. He showed me himself. And once you encounter that kind of love, you'll never want anything less. So I leave you with this. What are you opening your heart to? Are you following light or dressing up the dark? And if Jesus stood before you today and said, "You must choose," what would you do? Because I made my choice. Now it's your turn. If this story moved you, if it stirred something deep in your soul, tell me in the comments. Have you ever felt like you were being called out of the dark? Do you feel that now? Let's talk. Don't forget to subscribe. Not for me, but for the stories that wake people up. The world needs truth, and truth needs a voice.